Ambassador Reifenstuhl. I think this was a very good prelude to our panel now on EU integration and the Berlin process. So I'm very glad to welcome you all here today to our panel. And as we've seen in the discussions yesterday and also in the round of discussions this morning, the EU issue is somehow at the heart of everything. And as we've heard already yesterday and again by Ambassador Reifenstuhl, we're no longer leading this kind of discussion whether or not the Berlin process is a substitute for the EU integration process. It has been firmly underlined a couple of times that both work together in a way, mutually supporting each other to get the region into the European Union. However, at the same time, we're these days celebrating 10 years of Berlin process. But if we look at it, and this has also been mentioned before, the region has not really got actually close to EU accession so far. So I would say the task of our panel today is to discuss how can we interlink the Berlin process and the EU enlargement process better to make it more productive and more effective also for the EU integration process to work and to get the region into this direction. So I'm really glad that we have such a full audience this morning, but I must say I'm not really surprised because in the past years also the issue of EU integration was one of the most popular issues among the civil society topics at the civil society fora. And I'm also not really surprised because we have such a great panel today here, and we got a very interesting round of speakers, and I would say somehow all relevant stakeholders on board to join us for this discussion. So I would like to start with presenting the panel, and I will start with the rapporteur from civil society, who has a special role here because he's speaking for the results of the working group and presenting them. And our rapporteur for this topic is Zoran Nechev. He is the head of the Center for EU Integration at the Institute for Democracy, Societas Civilis in Skopje. Zoran has been working in the past years at a large number of important research institutes focusing both on the Berlin process and on EU integration. And he's also very busy these days because he's also one of the main conveners of the Berlin process parliamentary dimension. So great that you have the time. Welcome, Zoran.
Thank you.
And I would like also to welcome very warmly Minister of European Affairs Majda Gorcevic from Montenegro, who can join us today. I'm really glad that she could join us as a representative not only of a regional government, but also of what many consider currently a front-runner state in the EU integration process. She's an expert on law and has worked on issues of minority protection for the Montenegrin government. Since 2023, she's been member of parliament and took over the crucial portfolio of European affairs in Montenegro. Welcome.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
And joining us online, we have Ambassador René Trocas from France. He has held many diplomatic positions also in the wider region of Southeast Europe, and since last year, he has been special envoy for the Western Balkans. And Ambassador Trocas, I hope you can hear us well from Berlin. Okay, great. So we have one crucial EU member state present and also a second crucial EU member state, which is Germany, here represented by Ambassador Anja Wallau, Director for EU Basic Policy Issues, EU Coordination and EU External Affairs from the Federal Foreign Office. She joins us here with her strong background in EU issues, also from her time working at the German Federal President's Office. Welcome, Ambassador Wallau. And you already see what's missing so far. It's the EU Commission, and I'm really glad that we also have Wojciech Kowalski with us. He has been dealing with the issue of enlargement ever since Poland's accession, his native countries, to the European Union, and he's now with us as the advisor to the Director for Western Balkans in the EU Commission. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Just like all the panels who are based on our pre-discussions in Skopje, we will start now with the presentation of the working group recommendations. Afterwards, we will have a round of replies on these recommendations, comments, and potential additions. And we will, of course, also still use the free seat here in the round after. So everyone who's eager to join, and I've seen this morning that you seem to be very eager to join, I'm looking forward to that. So you can already prepare your questions for this. But for now, I hand over to Zoran for his presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, a couple of notes before I start. So first, thank the organizers for organizing the pre-summit, let's say, for the civil society and think tanks in Skopje. It was a pleasure assisting and leading one of the groups. Also, as Christian mentioned, these are not my personal recommendations, or not coming from the organization that I work for, but these are, let's say, the fruits of the work that we have done in Skopje. So I will try, as I only have 5 minutes, I will try to give you a couple of recommendations for the civil society organizations from EU member states and for regional organizations. So maybe start with the general overview in order to better, let's say, complement the EU accession process. One of the recommendations that we have discussed in Skopje is to have more predictability of the Berlin process. So first, continuity, because we know that there are elections next year in this country, and things might change, but we would like to see the Berlin process continuing, so we would know where do we stand and how should we actually organize ourselves vis-a-vis the Berlin process itself. So that's very important. And in terms of next hosts, what we were discussing in Skopje was that maybe as it was in the beginning, maybe not a 5-year plan, maybe a bit shorter, but to know who are the next hosts of the Berlin process already. So I think that would be quite important in order to have this predictability element within the Berlin process. What we discuss also is that we need to increase, and that's a recommendation not only for the member states or for Germany, but for all involved stakeholders, that we need to increase the visibility of the process. When we still discuss it in the Balkans, people mix with certain other initiatives that exist in the Balkans, but we need to pinpoint that most of the elements or the results or the outcomes which are coming actually from the Berlin process are from the Berlin process. So to increase the visibility. How the understanding of the Berlin process is also as a kind of driver, or let's say a way in which member states and the EU Commission can help the governments and administration in the Western Balkan to enhance their capacities. Because here we are talking about, okay, millions and millions of euros, that's all fine. But if the administration is not ready, if our governments do not know how to absorb them or implement those projects, then it will be really difficult. Then, we don't need those millions, as we don't know how to use them properly. So to use the Berlin process in order to enhance the administrative capacities of the governments in the Western Balkans. On the side of the civil society, what we see is a greater involvement of ours in the monitoring of all the commitments that are made as part of the Berlin process. And now, as we heard, CEFTA will be unblocked, so we have additional 11. We will have an additional mobility agreement, so all of this needs to be properly monitored. We are using extensively RCC's reports, but it is our opinion that much more and much deeper can be done by the civil society organizations. It was also extensively discussed, and there was a difference in opinions in Skopje, but it is finally that we have come to a conclusion that we need, or it is of essential importance to reintroduce rule of law as a topic into the Berlin process. We can discuss about all of these things, increased trade, green agenda, and all of this, but they're intertwined predominantly with the rule of law. So without enhanced focus on rule of law, besides the focus that the EU accession has, it will be difficult to make progress on other elements. As for the last 30 seconds, what I would say is also that, putting the efforts of the German government in the EU accession process, and predominantly here I think about the attempts to introduce the qualified majority voting in the intermediate stages of the accession process. We think that the Berlin process can be used as a venue to champion streamlining the decision-making process, and by doing that, to assist actually the governments in the region that are trying to do their best in terms of reforms, but are blocked on bilateral issues. That's it, 5 minutes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was even faster than 5 minutes, so thank you for being so sharp and concise. We will now start with a round of reactions from the panel. And I would start with Ambassador Trokas because I believe that he has to leave us a little bit earlier to include him into as many rounds as possible. So I would like to give you the floor first with your reactions to these recommendations for a maximum of 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, and delighted to be with you. I hope you hear me well. Sorry for not being in Berlin today, so I take part from the rainy Paris, but I understand the rain now is going to Germany. So on our topic, and following the remarks which have been made, after working very intensively for more than 1 year in this region, what can we say about this link between the Berlin process on one side and the European perspective on the other? I don't want to repeat what has been said, but it's very clear that's no discussion about that, at least in our mind, that the Berlin process is very useful. It is a very efficient tool, and as you are going in Germany to host the 10th summit of the Berlin process, we understand that some concrete deliverables are on the table and are clearly helping this démarche of our neighbors of the Western Balkans to the European path. Here I have in mind, we hope that the work which is done by my colleague, German colleague Manuel Sarrazin on the CEFTA and the question of the transportation of the goods at the border between Serbia and Kosovo is going to work. So we cross fingers, but I understand that these things are in a good way. That's something very important because this is something very concrete, which affects the populations. That's one thing. We also have, let me remind that I said that at the last meeting, at the ministerial meeting in Berlin, precisely of the Berlin process, concerning the cyber center we hosted by Montenegro, and I want to thank Minister of Foreign Affairs of Montenegro who is taking part to this panel. This is a joint initiative we had with Montenegro and Slovenia. So this is also something very concrete. What I mean by that is that within this framework of the Berlin process, we have a lot of very specific and concrete initiatives which are useful to the people. And they're useful because people see by their own eyes what cooperation in the European way and path on the European path can mean. So this is one thing. Concerning now the broader approach of the 6 countries of the Western Balkans joining the European Union and all the efforts and the endeavors which have to be done in this for this goal. Let me remind something which probably is well known to all of you, but I think it's always useful to keep that in mind. When we speak of the Western Balkans, the 6 countries, we are speaking of a global economy, which is the equivalent in GDP of Slovakia. We also speak of a population which reaches about 17 million people, which is more or less, I would say rather less than the Netherlands. What I mean by that is that it is something consequent, it is something important, don't misunderstand me, but it is something which is absorbable by the European Union. It is not the size of other countries, and it is not the size of previous waves of enlargement of the European Union to of the European Union. So this is something which is given. It is a reality, and now we have to work in the details. And this is where clearly the devil is in the details. The most crucial difficulty in this region is the internal tensions, which are a legacy of former periods, the war in Yugoslavia, we all know that, and we now have to overcome that. We know it's painful. As we repeat all the time, we're not giving any lessons to anyone. We're not teachers here. We are very respectful of our neighbors and partners and friends from the Western Balkans, but we want to help, to be useful as European Union, as France, addressing these countries to tell them that we don't see other future for them, other reasonable and optimistic future for them than in the European Union. This is precisely what my president reminded and said when during his last visit to Belgrade in Serbia. This is what he said a year ago when he visited for the first time as a French president Albania. This was the first visit of a French president to the state of Albania in 1 century, official visit. And this is what he told his interlocutors of the three representatives of the chairs of Bosnia when they were hosted in Paris. He told them that you need to work in this direction. So every country is in a different situation. Of course, you have countries which are more advanced technically, others which are less. Some difficulties I mentioned concerning some tensions and conflicts. But we need to have a global approach for the region, which does not contradict the merit-based approach. Of course, it is something requested for us as European Union. For which reason? Let me come to this point and clarify something. Because I heard that many times when visiting the countries of the Western Balkans. The merit-based approach has nothing to do with any, it's not a punitive approach. It is, of course, something which is demanding, but it is demanding for the countries. It comes with the coherence of the European Union and the European project. We don't want a downsized Europe. And I would say this is very respectful to the countries which are candidates. There are no second-class candidates. We want all candidates to be equal in our common European Union. This is the goal. This is very clear.
Thank you very much. We have to conclude
Okay.
at this point. I hand over to the Minister of European Affairs for her comments on the recommendations. Thank you very much, Ambassador Trokas.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. Also, say hello to René, and hope that we are going to meet again, maybe in Brussels or Montenegro. Thank you, Zoran, for sharing the recommendations. I must say that they were a very comprehensive one that you also shared with us, and I will go through some of those recommendations briefly so the other panelists have the time. So I think that when we are speaking about the Western Balkan countries, I think that we all learned by the experience so far. And not only the Western Balkan countries, but also I'm now speaking about the whole process of the integration and also about the European Commission that learned. And I'm thinking that maybe the reason why the methodology has changed in 2020 is one of the reasons why the rule of law must be before and one of the first stages before the economic or the other reforms. So in that way, I'm certain that if we are speaking about the Western Balkan countries, I must say that this year was very successful. And Ambassador Trokas said it very well. Even the fact that there was the merit-based approach, the equal candidate countries, there must be equality among us. Now I'm speaking from the Montenegro side, even the fact that we are now the leader in this process, but also someone who sees the whole Western Balkan countries as a part of European Union. And now I'm speaking as one who wants to lead by example and also to share the experience with the other candidate countries. So if we are speaking from that side, I think that Montenegro and all other Western Balkan countries had a great success. I must say that Montenegro had 2 IGCs this year, only this year. We had positive EBAR over the chapters 23 and 24. When we are speaking about the Bosnia-Herzegovina opening of the accession negotiations, if we are speaking about North Macedonia, then we are speaking about the screening. If you are speaking now about Serbia also and Albania, now we can speak also about their plan of opening clusters 1 and 3 for the both countries. So in that way, we see also Kosovo with their initiatives and being part of this whole European path. But also the thing is that the things are moving forward, that it's not like there was one period of time when there was stagnation over the European integration. Not only, I'm not speaking about the Montenegro, I'm speaking about the Western Balkan. And I'm certain that the good thing is also the Berlin process is taking us forward to this path over with a lot of initiatives, a lot of dialogues, and a lot of panels like this today. So I will go maybe through particular specific recommendations because one of the things that I can also see a particular value is fostering local ownership of the Berlin process. And this is one optimal way to reflect the specific needs and the priorities of the Western Balkan countries, most of which the situation of the impact that the accession progress. And most of all, I cannot only speak about the governance and the governments, I will also speak about the civil society organizations, because if they have the stake in the Berlin process, then I think that it's most likely to commit to its mission more progressively and more actively. Further on, I must tell that one of the things that was moving us during, and this was something that also the ambassador in the previous panel mentioned, is the growth plan. It is something where the Western Balkan countries were involved. I must say that there was a small competition. Whose reform agenda is going to be better? Who is going to have more reforms? Who is going to have to finish the reform agenda before? But that was the good competition between us. Those were the good competitions over the European agenda and over the things that matter not only for the Western Balkan, but for the whole process of the enlargement. So in that way, I think that regarding the reform agenda and the growth plan, it's going to be the spotlight for the next period of time, definitely. But this stagel and partially being part of European Union in this way through the single market over the national growth plan is one good approach of having the candidate countries from Western Balkan being the part and being motivated to finish the process of the negotiating process to the EU. So I think this is also one of the things that are the good to mention over the recommendations, and I think that besides that we really need, and that was one of the recommendations, long-term agenda for the Berlin process, because primarily it will entail reforms that Western Balkan countries need to undertake to integrate into the single market. And also must mention that between the Western Balkan countries, this motivation over the growth plan, it is also to being the part, for the example, and also having these ministry meetings, Ministry of European Affairs and the Ministry of Finance every couple of months regarding on the summit on the growth plan is the good approach of where we have the dialogue, not only about the political issues, and the good thing is also that we heard today several times that CEFTA is going to be unblocked. This is one of the good recommendations, and I think this is the good dialogue that we have every couple of months, because if we move forward on the things that are uniting us, then we are on the good path. And the European integration is something that we have all the same language. So One of the things that we were speaking on those ministry meetings were the green lanes, the digital wallet, SEPA, and the good thing is that now finally we can speak about a couple of countries for Western Balkan that finished the pre-application, and now I'm speaking now in Montenegro final application for SEPA, which is also the good thing for us to have and to be the part of the single market and to be the part of, to feel how it is also to be the part of the EU. So regarding two recommendation papers, I also often found that the civil organization's role must be brought to the full potential. Yes, that's the deal. That's why we are here. That's one of the roles, maybe the best of the Ministry of European Affairs, because the Ministry of European Affairs in Montenegro, we coordinate the whole process. We speak not only with the government, with institutions, we speak with the civil society, with the organizations, we speak with the citizens, with the parliament, and having everyone on board, especially if we have the civil society, then we know that European integration is something that can have the wider picture and can have also this good approach of a good example how we should do the things in the future. I know when we speak about Montenegrin NGO sector and the civil society, I must really be proud, even the fact that their job is to be very critical over the things that the government do. I think that they are very proactive, they are very visible, and they're resilient NGO sector in Montenegro, which as a country from the Western Balkan we can really be proud of. So in that way, I think that their job is to criticize also, to be support, and from the other hand, we really as the Ministry of European Affairs every month have open consultations with the NGO sector over, well, all the topics that are at that moment the sexy topics for the Montenegro when we speak about European integration and everything else. So in that way, we had every month a specific topic with the NGO, which is where we had a debate when we had their comments, and it was one good approach that we are going to have in future period of time as well.
Thank you very much. I will stop you here.
Okay, thank you, because time flies actually. So
yes,
there
we will have
so many things
rounds
to do, but really happy, and I'm certain that there will be much more things that we can go through the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this overview, and we've heard now that enlargement is doable, also because of the size of the region and the EU's capacity here. And we've also heard the interesting aspect that the growth plan is somehow an instrument of creating local ownership for the process and giving the countries more ability to shape it. Ambassador Wallau, what is your perspective on the recommendations?
Yes, thank you very much. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll get the right questions to continue later on with your points.
I have a lot of recommendations to comment, so it depends on
okay, answering. So thank you, but also thank everybody else for the recommendations, for the concrete recommendations, and all the work that has gone into drafting them, including the workshops in Skopje and everything. And I particularly like, well, first of all, the fact that we all have them. Many officials read them now in the Commission, in the German government, in the French government, so it's feeding into the process already. I just wanted to underline that's maybe a low-hanging fruit, as you would have called it in your paper. But I also like this division into tough nuts to crack and low-hanging fruit in this, because I think it fits well. Maybe sometimes the EU itself can seem like a tough nut to crack from the outside, but that was actually the whole intention behind the Berlin process, of course, helping crack the shell. Although I don't want to make it sound now like the EU was something closed off, and like Ambassador Reifenstuhl has also underlined, there's a real willingness to have the 6 Western Balkan countries join the European Union, and the idea is to jointly support cracking the shell. And so maybe it's useful to remember also where the EU started, how the EU started, and I'm not going into all these details, which you will probably touch upon with SEPA and green lanes and everything, how we incrementally move forward. But this incremental approach is also at the very basis of our European Union. We built the European coal and steel community back in the days when also there was still a lot of distrust and lack of trust and a lot of insecurities in relations, of course, very understandably. And we had to start with concrete progress, form follows function, if I may say this here, to enhance trust and build upon these things. So it's very similar, I think, to, and I believe our founding fathers, Schuman, Delors, would have probably very much approved of the common regional market approach and everything, also to bringing Western Balkan countries closer to the EU. Also, facilitating people-to-people exchange was one of the concrete recommendations that were made, not only here in this forum and all the seminars before, but also maybe it's worth underlining that also not all bilateral issues and all issues of distrust and everything had been solved between Germany and its neighbors before we joined the EU, or we're still working on some of these issues, actually. And so I think it's worth recalling that this needs parallel work, and progress should not be stopped by some of these issues, as you also recommended with qualified majority voting extended in some technical aspects of enlargement decisions. We're still working on that. That's another sort of tough nut to crack, but we're not giving up on this one, so we're on your side there as well. Overcoming barriers in trade and mobility. I'm not going into details there, just some personal impressions maybe from, I worked for President Steinmeier until about last week, and we traveled through the region and we met, for instance, in Skopje, young people from all across the region with RICO organized workshops. There was so much creativity, so much enthusiasm, and so many great ideas, but also so much frustration, of course, at the pace of progress, maybe not lack of progress, but pace of progress, that I'm very confident that, for instance, enhancing student mobility could have such a great impact on bringing the region closer to the European Union as well. But also, one concrete recommendation was to have work experience in the institutions, to study in the EU, but also in the region. There's a College of Europe in Tirana now. My alma mater has opened a university there as well. So just saying that we were very heartened to see all this enthusiasm in the region. And also some good examples. It was mentioned before, the issue of brain drain and skilled labor that we need here as well. When we were in Tirana, there was this Lufthansa Industry Solutions. I'm not making advertisement here, but I'm not saying what they produce, not flights. But there were a lot of people there discussing with the president and saying how they brought back some of the capacities, the experience they had gained from working in Germany mainly, but also in other EU countries, bringing it back to the region. So this whole idea of circular mobility is also an important aspect. So it just taking bits and pieces of how I think now that with the CEFTA unblocking and hopefully finally real progress on the 4 mobility agreements and paving the way also for more student mobility, this can actually have a great impact also on the EU integration. And you're nodding, so you're trying to make me stop probably. So I'm just saying, finally, maybe there's the nuts reminded me of a German saying as well, the proverbial squirrel that with his arduous work collecting nuts for the winter. Mühsam ernährt sich das Eichhörnchen. So maybe sometimes you also get this feeling for this EU integration, but it's worth that we all keep working on this together.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for underlining that the CRM is somewhat like a classical piece of EU integration, as it has been in the old EU states in the past, and for adding a new metaphor to the EU enlargement process.
I was very focused on the nuts.
Not only the scribble, but also
Autumn.
the shells that have to be cracked.
Okay.
Okay. So, but let's come to Mr. Kowalski, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me start with congratulating Germany and everybody involved on this 10th anniversary summit. And I think this year, more than ever, the Berlin process has proved that it is useful and it is really bringing real results to the region. We're talking about unblocking CEFTA, but we're also talking about adoption of the next CRM, a big deal for the region, of course. And we're talking about another mobility agreement, so 5th mobility agreement. So all in all, this, I mean, it is producing real results. I was thinking about the main question of this panel about the Berlin process and enlargement. And unfortunately, I have to say, to begin with, that the Berlin process is not about enlargement. And I don't think it ever was about enlargement. It is about engagement with the region. And it cannot be about enlargement because enlargement of the EU is an affair of the EU, which means not 9 member states plus the UK, but it's about all member states. This is a decision taken by all member states. So it cannot be about enlargement. However, it is very closely related to enlargement and it can definitely support enlargement. In particular, and I think the key area to look at how we can make the Berlin process and the enlargement process more streamlined is the key area to look at is regional cooperation and common regional market. And I will focus on this a little bit for the next minute or two of my address. I think this is where the Berlin process has added really most value to bringing the region closer to the EU. One might say, well, the common regional market is not really about EU, is it? I mean, you know, it's about the region cooperating. But that would be a very narrow way of looking at common regional market. In fact, common regional market is about EU. It is about the region coming closer to the EU. First of all, because common regional market is not just based on any principles. It's based on EU acquis. By integrating in specific areas, the economies of the region, the states in the region are actually adopting the acquis. Yeah. So we're bringing the region that way. We're bringing the region closer to enlargement. So that in that sense, common regional market is very much about pushing enlargement forward. Secondly, enlargement, we should remember, is based on 3 criteria. And the political criteria and the administrative criteria are only two of them. The third criterion is the economic criteria and the convergence. And right now, we're still dealing with a region where most countries have GDP below 50% of the EU average. So regional and common regional market is one of the ways that you can make progress, and the region can make progress in economic criteria and in economic growth, because creating a larger market carries a promise of attracting additional external investment and also activating investment mobility within the region. And thirdly, because the CRM is about European integration, because it is generally about integration. And as Ambassador Wallau mentioned, you know, Europe wasn't built in a day. There is a way of working between many countries. There is a way of negotiating through differences, building alliances, establishing something that transcends individual national interests, basically, that is done for the greater interest, for the higher interest. And this is, in a way, it's not a waiting room. This is, you are getting into that. The region is getting into that by building that common regional market. So in that sense, I think the Berlin process, by supporting common regional market and supporting regional cooperation, is essential for enlargement. Now, of course, as I mentioned, this year we have particular reasons to celebrate. But because of CEFTA and the new action plan, etc. But this year we also, as of last year actually, we should also look at common regional market. There is an additional reason why it's related to enlargement, and that is because it has become part of the EU framework of working with the region through the growth plan. The growth plan is based on 4 pillars. It's based on closer integration with specific areas of the EU single market. It's based on common regional market, and it's based on reforms and financial support. So the 4 pillars. So by being a pillar of the growth plan, again, regional cooperation is essential. And it is very clear in the growth plan that regional cooperation is a prerequisite for closer integration with the single market. In some areas, it's very simple. In some areas, it just makes no sense to open up EU single market to one partner while it is closed to the others. So it simply would not work. For instance, veterinary standards. You have to have, the whole region has to first get their act right, and they has to get their act together for the EU to open up. In other areas, it's not as clear-cut as that, but regional cooperation would simply have a multiplier effect on the impact of such measures, for instance, customs cooperation. So, for all these reasons, I think that particularly in the past 3 years, the Berlin process has been very well articulated with enlargement to the extent that it can. Of course, there are greater, there are ways, there are areas we could consider for ensuring greater synergies. We could think of giving the process a slightly more EU-oriented format, but this is a separate discussion. But we should not forget that the beauty of the Berlin process, as Ambassador Walau said, is that it doesn't involve the big and heavy structures of the EU, and that it is light, that it is flexible, and that it is based on building alliances. And when I was reading the recommendations, and also when I heard them today, yes, predictability of who's going to be the next host. Yeah, we always ask that question, and frankly, not even the Commission knows until the last minute. So you're not the only ones kept in the dark. On the other hand, I feel that there is the element. It's not just the element of surprise. I think it's also, in a way, you have to think about. This gives the process quite a lot of flexibility. Deciding, given the political situation, given how, who will do the most, who can achieve the best results next year. I think that judgment, keeping that judgment until the very end, I'm playing the devil's advocate here a little bit, but this is also something to consider. This is something to consider. We have a lot of predictability in the EU. In terms of who is the next presidency for the next 7 or 8 years, and that's not always working out very well for us.
Thank you very much. Also for clearly underlining this point that the Berlin process somehow prepares the countries for the EU integration, as I understood you, by, for example, adopting the acquis or by growing economically to be ready for the common market. Very, very important points. I now look into the audience and I see hands raised even before I ask the question, so that's a very good sign. I saw the hand over there first, but I will collect 3 of them, and then we will have the brief questions and a round of answers. So you are the first, and yes, I saw the lady next to Mr. Priebe, and I saw you as third. Yes. So yes, please come up. No, don't sit on each other's lap. Just come one after another. Take the seat. Please briefly introduce yourself and just put one question. Thank you.
It's going to be difficult. I have two questions. So, Nida Krunovska, Roma Foundation for Europe, originally from the region based in Berlin. So there are certain things that the EU member states can do and other things that has to be done from the society down. Yesterday we had a panel, not very much raised hands on Roma inclusion. So my question is, we've seen enlargement doesn't improve the situation of Roma, the situation in Roma in Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, it's not quite different than the ones in the Western Balkans. So what is the idea of the civil society and the governments to actually build this bottom up, especially since many people ask me, why do I work on Roma issues? Pointing that I should be dealing with more important issues, where the Roma are actually the low-hanging fruit, and you could see all the reforms, all the things deviances from the systems just by looking at the Roma and the effects of the reforms and policies and the exclusion there. So it's a very low-hanging fruit, or for the member states, any Russia propaganda is first tasted on Roma, but because it goes under the radar, then it's scaled up on LGBTI, etc., etc. So what are your plans as civil society and governments to actually zoom in on Roma as a very low-hanging fruit to check how your reforms are progressing? On the member states and the governments in the member states, there are certain things in the Commission you can do, right? Like changing the
Is this
voting.
the second question?
Yes, this is the to the rest of the panel.
Briefly,
Yeah, you can change the regulations or make a member states take a coffee break while taking a certain important decisions, because enlargement was always a political decision. It was a decision political to join Spain or Greece. It was a decision to expand in Czechia and the Warsaw Pact. It was a political decision in Romania and Bulgaria, and now in Ukraine. So my question is, it takes a leadership and courage to make these decisions. And I think it's very important to recognize, because if you look at what are member states doing about this, especially if we look at the polls, there is more support for enlargement of Ukraine than on the Western Balkans, because it's just how the EU member states are communicating around enlargement vis-a-vis the Western Balkans. So I will stop here. I will not go into the single market, etc., because Gorenje just now increased more than 50% sales in Western Europe as opposed to ex-Yugoslavia and Eastern Europe. So I think the market in the Western Balkan is already regional, and even member states sell more in the market that existed before. And I remember even Lončar in '88 discussing at the government level how Yugoslavia should prepare for the single market that was starting to form in the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we continue with the next question.
So hello everyone, my name is Vezdana Kovac, coming from the Center for Civic Education from Podgorica and Montenegro. Actually, I have a question for Minister Gorčević. Ms. Gorčević, I need to say that your speech was great, it was impressive. Both in terms of the progress of European Union integration in Montenegro and the role of the civil society. Also, it was very nice to hear that Montenegro is a front runner in this process, and I would be very pleased if this really reflects the reality in Montenegro. In that context, and I think this is the right place to ask a question, I would like to ask you for a comment on a yesterday call of Coalition za budućnost Crne Gore. For those ones who do not know, this coalition is part of government in Montenegro and majority in the parliament. And I won't say this is a pro-Russian or pro-Serbian coalition, but certainly it is pro-Putin and pro-Vučić coalition. So they call or an urgent introduction of a law against the foreign agents. And they claim, unfounded of course, that there are some organizations in Montenegro that work under the civil society, non-governmental organization guys actually.
And the question, please. Sorry.
So the question is,
My comment.
I would like to hear a comment, because certainly this is not in line with European Union legislation, and it's not in line with the European values that we so much talk about. So, and can you promise that this initiative will be ad acta? Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing up this important issue. Thank you. Yes. And we have a third contribution for this round.
Hard to keep up after such a great question. Thanks a lot. My name is Federico Terreni. I work for the European Movement International, an umbrella organization based in Brussels and active in over 30 countries, including the Western Balkan region, working on European integration, enlargement, and citizen participation. And I wanted to ask a question that very much reflects some of the many interesting points that have been made. And it's essentially to the whole panel a comment to the upcoming commission, because we've talked a lot about the region, we've talked a lot about integration, the single market, but I would be very interested to hear your thoughts, your opinion about your expectations for the next commission. We're very lucky to have a representative from DG NEAR, of course, but also from the other panelists, especially looking at what's been done in the last 5 years with a specific commissioner and what we can expect potentially from the new designate, who is I mean, we need to see about the hearings. They're going to start in a month, but Marta Kos from Slovenia. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a very interesting combination of questions. The first on the Roma issue and the not improved situation of Roma also in the EU, and what can be done about this also by member states, and also how to better communicate the support for the Western Balkan countries from the EU side in the accession process. We have the question on the foreign agent law in Montenegro, and for the expectations for the next commission. And I would say we start with the law in Montenegro, and I give the floor to Minister
I will go
Gorcevic.
through all three questions. Maybe
Yes,
I can,
yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, regarding the first question, I must say that the society is strong as the vulnerable groups are strong. When we are speaking about the Roma integration, when we are speaking about the Roma rights, not only in Montenegro but through the whole Western Balkan countries, I must say that they are on a very low level. The main thing is not only to include the NGOs that are speaking about the Roma integration, but to include the Roma people inside society, to have them more involved when they're, because we are always speaking about the Roma rights without Roma around the table, Roma people who are representing them. So in that way, I'm certain that the best way is if we want to change the things, we have to have them with us on the spots where the things are, when they are making decision making things for their rights and everything else. So in that way, I think that wider integration of Roma people, not only in Montenegro but everywhere where the decision making are the most important thing to have included, and that will change the thing. Regarding the second questions from Zvezdana, on the law against foreign agents, I must say that I have already answered on this question in Montenegro for the media in Montenegro, but the good thing is also to explain here. The political party that is the part of the parliamentary majority, and now we are speaking about parliamentary majority in Montenegro is almost 2/3. So now we are speaking about 13 MPs that gave yesterday one announcement that they are going to have a voting of such a law in the parliament. Regarding myself and regarding the political party that I'm representing, and that is the political party pro-European, and also the prime minister is the part of that political party, we are against this law. So I can only promise you that regarding my political party, and if I also read the articles yesterday regarding the other political parties that are the part of the parliamentary majority, I can promise you that there is not going to be the majority on the voting when it comes to this law in the parliament. I cannot promise that for the opposition parties, but I can promise that for the other parties that are the part of the parliamentary majority. The good thing is that you mentioned that this is not something that it goes to the European values. It is not going, that it's not representing the democratic principles such as good when we are speaking the NGO sector. And I'm really, like I said, even the fact that NGO in Montenegro, their job is to criticize the government, but also to support over the European integration. And I see them here as an allies. So in that way, I'm against this law, and I can say this also for my political party as well. Regarding the third question, okay, I cannot, okay. Hi. Upcoming commission, I must say that the good thing is that regarding the President Ursula von der Leyen and also her messages that are very, very motivating and encouraging for the every one of us who are the candidate countries. Those are the good messages, whoever is going to be the commissioner. But I must say, if we have the commissioner, I'm now speaking very personally because Slovenia is one of the countries who is very proactively and a friend of the enlargement process as well. I think that the good opinion is also to have Slovenian candidate for the commissioner for the enlargement. I think that if it happens to be the Ms. Kos, I think it will be the great decision as well. And I really wish all the luck to Ms. Kos and the other candidates over the commission. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we lost now Ambassador Trokas.
Okay.
Is that correct? Can I just get a sign? Okay. So we will continue with Ambassador Valla, who's still with us on these questions.
Yes, it's more difficult to be lost. No, no, but maybe just very briefly on both the Roma issues and also foreign agents. I think it's useful to remember that's why we have fundamentals in the EU enlargement process, and these fundamentals. Maybe I should have stressed that also before, because you stressed rule of law as the absolute essential element as well in your civil society recommendations. And that includes good government, good administration, but human rights, civil liberties, and so this basically shows how essential this is, because it is a fundamental for the enlargement process as well. And for the new commission, you're probably much better placed than I am to, no, well, maybe if you can't. But we are all obviously very much looking forward to see how this complex new structure works out. It seems to be Agenda 2030 personified in the commission, but we know, as you said, President von der Leyen attaches great importance to enlargement, and as you already mentioned, Slovenia has worked so much on these issues as well. So well, we'll see how Commissioner Designate Kos will be doing.
Yes.
But
thank you very much. I'll start with Roma. I mean, your concerns are fully heard, and I think they're also fully heard in the Berlin process, because there is a dedicated strand of the Berlin process dedicated specifically to Roma. And the really nice thing about that strand is that it was a grassroots initiative. It actually came from the region. As far as I remember, it was actually the then Prime Minister of North Macedonia who got the other leaders to sign the declaration in Poznan in 2019. And ever since, there is monitoring of the commitments that are being made in the process. Having said that, of course, it's not enough, and when you say, you know, accessing the EU doesn't necessarily make things better, I don't have the figures at hand, but unfortunately, sometimes the EU is asking candidates to do things that not all member states are very good at. And this is the reality, but it doesn't mean that we should try to lower our standards. The Commission itself is supporting projects for the Roma community in the region, and will continue to do so, and we will continue supporting this strand of the Berlin process, which we find very important and very useful. On the foreign agents, I mean, it's a tough question. It's a quite tough question for Minister Gocevic. Of course, you know.
No, it's easy actually. The easy one.
But
reply.
of course, it would be very concerning. But let's see how the situation develops. Hopefully, this will be a non-issue. On the new commission, indeed, I mean, you know, if I could tell you more if I was the commissioner designate, because she's going to have her hearings in early November. But I think there are a few signs that you can read from the situation that augur well for the region, I would say. First of all, and to enlargement in general. First of all, there is a dedicated commissioner for enlargement. And this was not the case with the previous commissioner, who also had a big portfolio related to North Africa and the Middle East, which are not the easiest regions, and also related to a large extent to migration. So the fact that we now get a commissioner who focuses on enlargement means we're getting much more political focus on enlargement. I think that's a very good sign. The second thing is we have the same president. The president is committed to enlargement. The president, I think this president has been in all the summits of the Berlin process. The president every year travels around the region. She will be traveling around the region in a few weeks again. The president has good relations with all the leaders in the region, and has the interests of the region very much at heart. So I think that's also a good message. Now, the commissioner designate is from the region as well. This is also very important, because you might think, well, there's so much focus on Ukraine these days. So I think the fact that that there is someone who knows the region in this seat that will hopefully is also a good sign for the region, that the region will not be forgotten but will be prioritized. One other thing that I would say is, if Commissioner Koss is indeed confirmed in this role, is that as far as I have seen her bio and as far as I understand her experience, is she has considerable experience in communication. And communication is something that has come up in your report, and communication is something that keeps coming up also in our issues, in our in the EU, and in how we interact with the Western Balkans. Basically, there is a perception in many countries of the Western Balkans, despite the fact that the EU is the single biggest donor, by far, manifold, of assistance. In many countries of the Western Balkans, there is a belief that China gives more, that Russia gives more. I mean, I hope that this will also help change that perception, given that we have someone with a background and sensitive to communication.
And do you think it will be enough for the Commission to say this more directly, or don't you need the governments of the region to tell the story more broadly?
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think if you have a commissioner who puts a lot of emphasis on communication and on communicating these messages, you might get a better result.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also for underlining that also the shape of the portfolio matters, and that this is an interesting aspect. I got a sign that we have 5 minutes longer, and we still have a lot of hands. So we can take 2 more people. I say one hand here. These were like the quickest up. Yes. And while you're lining up, maybe Zoran, you can also tell us briefly about your expectations for the new commissions or the hopes in a minute.
Yeah, I think that, well, this will be very personal, although it's stream, but you know that I'm coming from North Macedonia. You know all the issues that we have been experiencing for the last couple of years. Well, you know where the previous commissioner was coming from. In regards to the portfolios, I completely agree. I think, but it's also the personality behind it. And we had, especially around, now it's a European proposal, around the French proposal for unblocking North Macedonia, we had tremendous issues with the previous commissioner. So I think that not only coming from the region, I think that coming after Commissioner Varhey, I think it would be much better in comparison, let's put it like that, not to be rude. And also that after, and that the Commissioner designate has also been an ambassador in this country for 4 years. So there are good relations between and understands Germany as a big supporter of the EU enlargement process. I think that will be very important to push the portfolio, to push enlargement further.
Thank you. Okay, we go to Adriatic.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and also for this amazing gathering. One small addendum of not agreeing with you that the Poznan Declaration was never a grassroots initiative. Prime ministers are not grassroots, they are the head of states. And I have not seen any grassroots initiative that goes that far up, so it was a political decision, endorsed and supported by European Commission when you sit on. But I'm a bit confused at this stage of the meeting. And is it Berlin process connected to enlargement or not? Because the member states say it is very well connected. You from the Commission say it's not about enlargement. While the Poznan Declaration as such, it says Roma integration within the enlargement process, endorsed by the Commission, signed by the head of states. So there is this confusion. The reason why I'm saying that is that because most of the discussion when it comes to European integration is a very elitist discussion. And when it reaches the people, then later on, people get confused. On the other hand, it seems we have a front runner. I'll come back to the question shortly. It seems we have a front runner, that's Montenegro. I'm very happy about it. Before it was Macedonia, then it was Albania. Then all the time it's a front runner. It's like a teacher. What's it saying? You are performing, then you will go with the flow. Then something is happening and goes down again. And minister change and prime minister change. The only that change is the audience in the country. And the people in the country. And then it brings it was shared by RCC Regional Cooperation Council yesterday that the support to the EU enlargement, it's falling down. And there is a reason why it's falling down. And I'm very much interested, I'm looking Mr. Pribe there, Reinhard Pribe, which has been involved before in enlargement. And is it worthwhile to have this blaming, shaming, merit-based approach? You think it's working? You think the region, you think Albanians will say, if Montenegrins are the front runners, we will run faster next time to make sure that we arrive in the end? Or it should be a political decision, giving and making the history just to enable the Western Balkans to be part of the European Union, because they are part of the continent in Europe. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and we will have the other question. And I would sum this up in a way that you're questioning the regatta principle and if it makes actually sense and if it's moving somewhere.
Good morning. My name is Maja Rejčević. I come from Women's Rights Center Montenegro, but I am also, our organization is a part of a wider regional coalition of women NGOs, some of them sitting here, that participated in the working group Gender and Diversity. So I want to take this opportunity actually to remind that gender equality is a part of fundamentals of the EU, and when you see the Berlin process, not only photos, but also the declarations that came from it, you could see that you could imagine that in Western Balkans, only white hetero men are living, no women at all. Because this is the first time, and I want to praise this year's Civil Society Forum and preparations for actually including gender and diversity as a specific topic. So my question is, how the EU policies, I mean, you mentioned that it's the Berlin process and the EU integration, it's not the same process, but it's of course very much connected, and I would like to know how you would ensure the sustainability of these recommendations coming from the Civil Society Forum, particularly related to gender, and how you will ensure that gender equality policies of the EU are reflected and included in this process, since, for example, you have a Gender Action Plan 3 that is actually devoted to external actions of the EU that was not enough recognized in the Western Balkans, and I think it would be really important to make it living in this process as well, and make it also implemented within the integration process. And here I just brought some of the reports of ours that are actually gender analysis of the EU integration process, that you might see actually what we did for the last 10 years. We followed closely the Berlin process and participated in it, and we also parallelly followed the EU integration process. But as I said, unfortunately, our previous contributions, even we were present, were not involved sufficiently in the declarations of the Western Balkan countries. And I would like to actually say that I couldn't agree more with our Minister of European Affairs when she says that civil society is important, not only for giving the voice, but also for keep our governments accountable for the declarations and all the promises they are making, and also want to raise concern about the replicating of negative practices throughout the region when it comes to civil society, related to what my colleague says, the laws on foreign agents that was already implemented in the Republika Srpska and now is coming to Montenegro, and we can only presume it's going to spread all over the Western Balkans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, as we are already in the last round now of answers, I would like to add to this that you probably, besides answering these questions regarding the regatta principle and the gender issues in the enlargement process and the Berlin process outcomes, that you formulate that probably, if not for the next 10 years of the Berlin process, because I also very much hope that we don't need the Berlin process for the next 10 years, but maybe for the next 2 years, what your hopes for the Berlin process would be, how it should develop. And I will just move in this round, starting with Mr. Kowalski and ending with Zoran here.
Thank you very much. To answer the first question, sorry I didn't make myself clear about, is it about enlargement or is it not about enlargement? What I was saying was, it is not the enlargement process. It doesn't replace the enlargement process. The enlargement process happens somewhere else. This supports enlargement and is complementary to enlargement, and it has demonstrated that it is. That was my message, and I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. I completely agree with you on the grassroots. What I meant, again, was that it wasn't coming from EU countries participating in the process. It was coming from the countries, from the Western Balkans. But of course, yeah, I know grassroots is a different term, so that was, again, my not really stating the facts correctly. On the competition and on the regatta principle of enlargement, I mean, I was working in Poland when my country was getting ready for enlargement, and I know it is a slightly different enlargement. It is a very different enlargement indeed, because it took 3 or 4 years in the case of my country. Everything was different, I suppose. But I found that this was, back then, it certainly was a principle that worked. It certainly was. I mean, there was a very clear intention, I think, of the EU to have everyone together. So that was why it was the peer pressure of the others to advance in the reforms. So in that sense, I think the regatta principle was good. In the Western Balkans, I think it is good, because as Minister Gorcevic has said, for the reform agendas, you know, we have seen, I think the Commission was somewhat shocked, to be honest, that the region has decided to have a summit on its own without the Commission pushing for it. First one in North Macedonia, then in Albania, then in Montenegro. Now we're going to have one in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's actually the leaders of the region and the ministers of European integration of the region who came up with this initiative, because they realized there is an opportunity and they need to work together, and they're competing a little bit, yes. But I think that adds spice to things, and that it's something that we haven't seen for a very long time. So I think it is, in that sense, I see only positive. I see only positive outcomes. Gender issues, very much very much part of the fundamentals. On our side, I can only say that we are definitely mainstreaming gender issues in everything that we do with the region, and that I also welcome the fact that you had for the first time, gender issues on the agenda of the Berlin process. In terms of just to be quick, now in terms of the future, the next 2 years, so I think I'll be consistent with my message from before. I think if the process is doing something well, it is regional cooperation. It is regional economic cooperation, and this is very much related to enlargement. So I would love to see in the next summits more mobility agreements being signed and even more being implemented. Because let's not forget, we have 5 mobility agreements, but 3 of them are blocked in terms of full implementation. The ID agreement, travel to Bosnia and Herzegovina, not possible on ID. With Kosovo, for instance, yeah. So we still have an issue there. We still have issues with the recognition of academic qualifications. We have a new agreement being signed now at the summit on access to study, but it's going to be. It's not really going to move until the other issue is deblocked. So I would see more agreements and progress in the implementation of the agreements. And if this is all the Berlin process does in the next 2 years, it will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador Wallau?
Yeah, just very briefly on competition, as long as it adds spice, I guess, and some healthy peer pressure, it can be helpful, but I also sometimes get the feeling of openly always calling someone front runner and others not, can also be discouraging. So I didn't say it, sorry.
He did. I'm looking at him, actually.
On gender equality, yes, Germany did better on photos previously, I know, but so now it's indeed, that's maybe somebody looked at the photo and realized that's why it has to be a specific subject at this Berlin Process Summit. So hopefully there'll be some progress on this issue. And I'm just hoping in 2 years' time, I think there might still be a necessity to also work in the Berlin process, but with more time, that it'll become less and less necessary to also support enlargement in the framework of the Berlin process. So that's what I would be hoping for.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. 2 questions and observations. I'm really happy to see Maya here because I know that she's doing the greatest and the best job, not only for Montenegro, but for the whole region as well. And very happy that she got here the report. So thank you for sharing that. Regarding the merit-based approach, yes, that's the only approach. And believe me, that's the only thing that keep us motivating. That's the only thing that if we are not seen as a whole package, if we are not seen as the Western Balkan countries as one that should join at once, if we have this small competition, this is the good thing, because even the fact we are really supportive to each other, but this small competition is something that is pushing us to be better, to perform better and everything else. And when we are speaking about also this motivation that is very good for us, it's even the fact that you said it's not about enlargement. Yes, it is everything. It's about enlargement, because I'm speaking now as someone from Montenegro. I'm speaking now because for us, it's not about money. For us, it's not about some other things that motivate us. For us, the membership in the EU is a must, and this is the only motivation why we are doing all these reforms. And where we see ourselves in 2 years over the Berlin process and everything else, I know that Berlin process has withstood the test of time, and that's great. And the good thing is also to keep us motivated. I can see this as a good thing where we can also have more administrative capacities, speak more about the troubles, speak more about all the issues, and to be very supportive to the enlargement process, because this is something that is keeping us on this way. So in next 2 years, yes, I see 28 by 28 Montenegro on the merit-based approach and next member of the EU. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So apparently being called the front runner is not discouraging, but motivating.
Well, it's motivating. Look at me.
But maybe for
So Ran.
Yeah. Okay, I will be quite brief. So what we have seen today with CEFTA and with CRM2 is that when we connect the Berlin process with some bigger agenda, which is part of the enlargement process, then even the pressure to the Western Balkan countries increases, because they feel that they will be part of something which is bigger. In this sense, it's the single market, or is the funds allocated to the growth plan, regardless. But, you know, connecting something that can be done on a more technical level by, you know, support of certain countries, connecting it with a bigger one. So I think that's the formula of moving forward. Regatta or not, I think at this point is irrelevant. What we need actually on a European level, as it was in the case with the Central and Eastern European countries, that there was a political decision, we want you in. Declarations are fine, but then when it comes to the actual support, that's what we need from the EU. Yeah. It's difficult with 27, but yeah, that's
I
what
like
we
this
need.
guy.
Yeah, I won't say anything else.
Okay. Thank you all very much for this discussion this morning and for you to participating. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before you